Okay, this is going to be a little unusual. First of all, I'm not using any professional microphone. As you can see, I'm using the camera's microphone. Second, this is off the cuff. It is live. Third, it's at home on a Sunday. Now, for me, that's not just unusual, that's unfaithful. Um, I'm not disparaging any church that closed, okay? Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of reasons that this is a good idea, and there's only one reason that it's not. And the one reason is that we as Christians should, at the very least, have faith that we can move forward in this time of panic. I was just in a store yesterday, and I'm sure many of you have seen the same thing. Uh, the can aisles just completely wiped from existence. The canned meats, the canned vegetables, um, even the dried beans gone. All that was left were garbanzos and split peas, I think, and that was only like 6 bags total. Bread gone, paper wiped out. No pun intended. And I questioned, and I have questioned why we should be so fearful. Now, as my good friend and mentor, Pastor David, would say, writing a sermon is not that easy. It takes time, and I wasn't going to just throw something together. Uh, but I found this one from way back in the 1800s by the Reverend Charles Spurgeon about fear, and I think it's appropriate for today. I've only skimmed over it, so I'm reading this off the cuff too. I have not practiced it at all, so this will be interesting. But I think it's relevant for today because we are living in a world of fear right now, and that's well, for one thing, it's not a comfortable place to be. For another thing, it's not a Christian place to be, and for the third, it is not a community place to be. When we wipe out the shelves of stores of absolutely everything, leaving nothing for those, we saw people going around with walkers, with wheelchairs, with those mechanical devices. They couldn't get into the stores when everyone was panicking. When we leave nothing for them, what does that mean about us as Christians? What does this mean about us as a community? This is where we're at. So this sermon is entitled "Fear Not." It was delivered Sabbath morning, October 4th, 1857, by the Reverend Charles H. Spurgeon at the Music Hall, Royal Surrey Gardens. And he starts out, "Fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel. I will help thee, saith the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel." Isaiah 41, verse 14. I shall speak this morning to those that are discouraged, depressed in spirit, and sore troubled in the Christian life. There are certain nights of exceeding great darkness, through which the spirit has to grope in much pain and misery, and during which much of the comfort of the word is particularly needed. Those seasons occur in this manner. Frequently they occur at the outset of a religious life. A young man deeply impressed under their ministry has been led to feel the weight of sin. He trusts also he has been led to look for salvation to the Christ who is preached in the gospel. In the young ardor of his spirit, he devotes himself wholly to Christ. With the most solemn vows, he dedicates body, soul, time, talents, all that he has to the great work of serving God. He thinks it is easy to fulfill his vow. He does not count the cost. He reckons it will be easy to forsake gay companions, to renounce old established habits, and to become a Christian. Alas, before many days he finds out his mistake. If he did not reckon without his host, he certainly reckoned without his heart. For his evil heart of unbelief has deceived him. He knew not how hard would be the struggle, and how desperate the wrestling between his old evil nature and the new-born principle of grace within him. He finds it to be like the rending off of right arms to give up old and cherished habits. He discovers it to be painful to renounce his former pursuits, as painful as it would be to pluck out his right eye. He sits down then, and he says, "If this be the trouble at the outset, what may I expect as I proceed? O my soul, thou wast too fast in dedicating thyself to God. Thou hast undertaken a warfare which thy prowess can never accomplish. Thou hast started on a journey for which thy strength is not adequate. Let me again return unto the world. And if the Spirit saith, Nay, thou canst not, then the poor soul sits itself down in deep misery and cries, I cannot go back, and I cannot go forward. What must I do? I am exceedingly discouraged because of the way." The same feeling often overcomes the most valiant Christian veteran. He who has been long experienced in the things of the divine life will sometimes be overtaken with a dark night and a stormy tempest. So dark will be the night that he will not know his right hand from his left, and so horrible the tempest that he cannot hear the sweet words of his master, say, "Fear not, I am with thee." Periodical tornadoes and hurricanes will sweep over the Christian. He will be subjected to as many trials in his spirit as trials in his flesh. This much I know. If it be not with all of you, it is so with me. I have to speak today to myself, and whilst I shall be endeavoring to encourage those who are distressed and downhearted, I shall be preaching, I trust, to myself. For I need something which shall cheer my heart. Why, I cannot tell. Wherefore, I do not know. But I have a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to buffet me. My soul is cast down within me. I feel as if I had rather die than live. All that God hath done by me seems to be forgotten, and my spirit flags and my courage breaks down with the thought of that which is to come. I need your prayers. I need God's Holy Spirit. And I felt that I could not preach today unless I should preach in such a way as to encourage you and to encourage myself in the good work and labor of the Lord Jesus Christ. What a precious promise to the young Christian, or to the old Christian attacked by lowness of spirits and distress of mind. Fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel, I will help thee, saith the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. Christian brethren, there are some in this congregation, I hope many, who have solemnly devoted themselves to the cause and service of Jesus Christ. Let them hear then the preparation which is necessary for this service set forth in the words of our text. First, before we can do any great things for Christ, there must be a sense of weakness. Worm Jacob. Secondly, there must be trust in the promised strength. And third, there must be fear removed by that promise. Fear not, for I will help thee. Now, I'm going to break there for a moment. As many of you know, I've been 2 years out, first with a knee, then with a shoulder. Dirt and Nails has floundered a lot. In fact, right now the website is completely down. I don't know what happened. It crashed. It crashed again when I tried to rebuild it. Dirt and Nails, as you know, has been my heart since 2009, to eventually build farms as rehab facilities for homeless families. But what it has really done so far, because we don't have a farm yet, obviously, what it has really done is given me a way to still help people. It sows seeds of hope for the homeless and the hungry. Now, what I saw yesterday in the supermarket, I mean, the vegetables gone, meat gone. It tells me that the worst is yet to come. Because, see, if we've emptied out the stores, we have to wait for the harvest. That's in the fall, folks. If we empty out the stores, all that's left is the greenhouses and the harvest. That's it. Now, the last 2 years, I've been asking for help from people to do my job, my volunteer work, as the person that goes out and delivers seeds to people who can't afford it, to rototill community gardens, and to rototill gardens that for people who can't afford to really do their own work. So for 2 years, that rototiller has sit still. Now, I don't even know if it will start. What we could really use right now is an influx of money. But right now, as I said, the website is down. Look up Dirt and Nails Farms Incorporated. It's on Facebook. Donate when you can. Just a minute. Honey, can you close the door, please? Dad? Honey, yes. We're about to go. I love you. Okay. All right. Thank you, honey. You're welcome. My daughter, folks, Freya. Anyway, we're going to need to replace the rototiller. I'm pretty much sure of that, unfortunately. If not this season, then definitely by the next. We definitely need volunteers. We definitely need donations of seed, soil amendments, you name it. This is not going to be an easy summer for a lot of people, and we can help. If you're local, let me know if you want to start your own community garden in your front yard. Okay? That is how desperate this is going to be. You want fear? I want hope. And my hope is in every seed I plant. Every year. And yeah, that does mean that for the last 2 years, it's been pretty dismal. So I want you to consider this. If you aren't volunteering with a community garden yet, get involved. Locally, there's a senior hub. They have several community gardens that they work with. As I said, Dirt and Nails is going to help out with that effort as well. I know of a food bank ministry that helps the homeless called Halo. There's local food banks, of course. Please donate there when you can. We're all in this together, folks. This is a community. We need to work it as a community. All right. So let me continue. In the first place, the first qualification for serving God with any amount of success and for doing God's work well and triumphantly is a sense of our own weakness. When God's warrior marches forth to battle with plumed helmet and with mail about his loins, strong in his own majesty, when he says, I know that I shall conquer, my own right arm and my mighty sword shall get unto me the victory, defeat is not far distant. God will not go forth with that man who goeth forth in his own strength. He who reckoneth on victory, having first calculated his own might, has reckoned wrongly. For it is not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. They that go forth to fight, boasting that they can do it, shall return with their banners trailed in the dust, and with their armor stained with defeat. For God will not go forth with the man who goeth forth in his own strength. God hath said it. Men must serve him. They must serve him in his own way, and they must serve him in his own strength too, or he will never accept their service. That which man doth, unaided by divine strength, God never can accept. The mere fruits of the earth he casteth away. He will only have that, the seed of which was sown from heaven, sprinkled in the heart, and harvested by the Son of grace. There must be a consciousness of weakness before there can be any victory. I think I hear many saying today, well, sir, that be a qualification for doing much. I have it to a very large extent. Well, do not marvel, do not wonder, depend on this. God will empty out all that thou hast before he will ever put his own into thee. He will first empty all thy granaries before he will fill them with the finest of wheat. The river of God is full of water, but there is not one drop of it that takes its rise in earthly springs. God will have no strength used in his own battles, but the strength which he himself imparts. And I would not have you that are now distressed in the least discouraged by it. Your emptiness is but the preparation for your being filled, and your casting down is but the making ready for your lifting up. Are there others of you that would almost desire to be cast down, that they might be prepared to serve God? Let me tell you then how you can promote in yourself a sense of your own nothingness. The text addresses us as worms. Now the mere rationalist, the man who boasts of the dignity of human nature, will never subscribe his name to such a title as this. Worm, he says? I am no worm. I am a man. A man is the most glorious thing that God has made. I am not going to be called a worm. I am a man. I can do anything. I want not your revelations. They may be fit for children, for men of childish minds that only learn by believing. I am a man. I can think out truth. I will make my own Bible, fashion my own ladder, and mount it to heaven, if there be a heaven, or make a heaven, if that be all, and dwell in it myself. Not so, however, he who is wise and understandeth. He knows that he is a worm, and he knows it in this way. First, he knows it by contemplation. He that thinks will always think himself little. Have no brains are always great men, but those who think must think their pride down. If God is with them in their thinking, lift up now your eyes. Behold the heavens, the work of God's fingers. Behold the sun guided in his daily march. Go ye forth at midnight, and behold the heavens. Consider the stars and the moon. Look ye upon these works of God's hands. And if ye be men of sense, and your souls are attuned to the high music of the spheres, ye will say, what is man, that thou art mindful of him? And the Son of Man, that thou visitest him? My God, when I survey the boundless fields of ether, and see those ponderous orbs rolling therein, when I consider how vast are thy dominions, so wide that an angel's wing might flap to all eternity and never reach a boundary, I marvel that thou shouldst look on insects so obscure as man. I have taken to myself the microscope and seen the ephemera upon the leaf, and I have called him small. I will not call him so again. Compared with me, he is great. If I put myself into comparison with God, I am so little that I shrink into nothingness. When I behold the almightiness of Jehovah, so little that the difference between the animalculae and the man dwindles into nothing. When compared with the infinite chasm between God and man, let your mind rove upon the great doctrines of the Godhead. Consider the existence of God from before the foundations of the world. Behold him who is and was and is to come, the Almighty. Let your soul comprehend as much as it can of the infinite and grasp as much as possible of the eternal. And I am sure if you have minds at all, they will shrink with awe. The tall archangel bows himself before his master's throne, and we shall cast ourselves into the lowest dust when we feel what base nothings, what insignificant specks we are when compared with our all adorable Creator. Labor, O soul, to know thy nothingness, and learn it by contemplating God's greatness. Again, if you want to know your own nothingness, consider what you are suffering. I was thinking the other evening how small a matter it must be with God to cast any man into the most unutterable agony. We are well and in good spirits. We know not why, but it seems as if God's finger has touched one nerve, but one poor nerve, and we are so miserable that we could sit down and weep. We do not know how to bear ourselves. But half an hour ago we could have smiled at Satan's rage and faced a frowning world, and God does but put his hand on our hearts and just let one of the strings run loose, and what discord there is in our spirits. We are annoyed at the slightest matter. We wish to be continually alone. The very promises yield us no comfort. Our days are nights. Our nights are black as Gehenna. We know not how to endure ourselves. How easily, then, can God cast us into misery? O man, what a little thing thou art, if so little a thing can overthrow thee. Ye have heard men talk big words when they have been prosperous. Did you ever hear them talk so when they were in deep distress and great anguish and sorrow? No? Then they say, Am I a sea or a whale that thou settest a watch upon me? What am I that thou shouldst visit me every morning and chasten me every night? Let me alone until I swallow down my spittle. Why am I sore vexed? What am I that thou shouldst make me a butt of thine arrows and a target for thy wrath? Spare me, O my God, for I am less than nothing. I am but a shadow that passeth away and declineth. O deal not hardly with thy servant, for thy mercy's sake. Great sorrow will always make a man think little of himself, if God blesseth it to him. And again, if you would know your weakness, try some great labor for Christ. I can understand how some minister who preaches to his 150 on Sabbath day and regards himself as having a large congregation should be very precise about the color of his cravat and about the respect that is paid to his dignity in his little church. I can well comprehend how he should be as big as my Lord Archbishop, because he does nothing. He has nothing at all to try him. But I cannot imagine Martin Luther standing before the Diet at Worms being proud because he had to do such a deed as that. I cannot conceive John Calvin in his incessant labors for Christ, leading on the Reformation and teaching the trust of God with power, saying to himself, Lo, this great Babylon that I have builded. I can suppose the man that has nothing to do, and that is doing nothing, sitting down in devout complacency with his own adorable self. But I cannot conceive, if you nerve yourselves to great labors, but what you will have to say, Lord, what a worm am I that thou shouldst call me to such work as this. Turn, if you please, to the history of all men who have done great deeds for God, and you'll find them saying, I marvel that God should use me thus. This day my mind was exceedingly cast down, says one of them, for God had called me to a great labor, and I never felt so much of my own insufficiency as I did today. Says another, I have tomorrow to do such and such an eminent service for my master, and I can say that when I was in my low estate, I was often exalted above measure. But this day my God has cast me into the lowest depths at the recollection of the work for which he has engaged me. Go and do something, some of you, and I will be bound to say it will be the means of pricking that fair bubble of your pride and letting some of it blow away. If you would understand what is meant by being a worm, go and do what the 15th verse says the worm should do. Go and thrash the mountains and beat them small. Make the hills as chaff fanned by the wind. Scatter them and then rejoice in God. And if you can do that, the more God's glories strike your eyes, the humbler you will lie. Devout contemplation, sharp suffering, hard labor, all these will teach us what little creatures we are. Oh, may God by all means and every means keep us well understanding and knowing that we are nothing more and nothing better than worms. How easy it is, my brethren, for you and I to fly up. How hard to keep down. The demon of pride was born with us, and it will not die 1 hour before us. It is so woven into our very warp and woof of our nature, that till we are wrapped in our winding sheets, we shall never hear the last of it. If any man telleth me that he is humble, I know him to be profoundly proud. And if any man will not acknowledge this truth, that he is desperately inclined to self-exaltation, let him know that his denial of this truth is the best proof of it. Do you know what is the sweetest flattery in all the world? It is the flattery that Caesar's courtiers of old gave him when they said Caesar hated flattery, being then most highly flattered. We do not hate flattery, any one of us. We all like it. We do not like it if it is labeled flattery. Well, we like it if it is given in a little underhand fashion. We all love praise. The proud to gain it toils on toils endure, the modest shun it, but to make it sure. We all love it, every soul of us. And it is right and meet that we should all bow before God and acknowledge that pride which is woven into our nature, and ask him to teach us what little things we are, that we may claim this promise, fear not, thou worm Jacob. Okay, I know a lot of you are used to 15-minute sermons, so I'm going to just stop right there. It does go on. They used to write them pretty long back then. Look, I'm not going to tell you not to be afraid. I'm going to tell you that if you let the fear control you, that is when things get bad. Instead, let's turn this into something good. Let's make it positive. Let's do something. Now, the basics of the coronavirus are pretty simple, right? You wash your hands, you wipe down surfaces, try not to spread it, in other words. But if you get face masks, even though you're not infected, just to keep the virus off of you, the CDC has already said it will not work. And meanwhile, you're taking away face masks from those in the industry who need it. Home health care workers. If you take away all the toilet paper in the world from the people that, well, could really use it, because they probably are sick with the stomach flu that's been going around Colorado as well, guess what? Yes, you are to blame. If you take away food so you can hoard it for yourself and do not share with your neighbor, you are no better than the rich man who would not even so much as share crumbs under his table. Instead, let's be positive about things. Let's do something. Colorado's spring so far is turning into a very mild one, which means we can plant early. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend you get involved with your community gardens. I highly recommend that you get involved with the food banks and see just how fast those donations start going down, so that you understand the need. Most of all, just be humble. This crisis is not about you. It's about the community. And the way we get through it is together. This is Longhaul Preacher, Monty Pescador, signing off.